And, you see Paul talking about, like, confronting somebody about their sins in front of the whole church body. Yeah. And now that sounds like such a petrifying thing because now you're dealing with people that will then go to their neighbor and be like, oh, my gosh, yeah, so I got this guy at my church and they go and talk to their family, and they go talk to, they talk amongst themselves in the church body, and that's what you are worried about dealing with now. All right, episode 70 of the Stand Firm podcast. I am Quintin.
I'm Wyatt.
This is the podcast where two real Christians get together, discover hard truths, have good conversations. I kind of forgot our motto as I was saying it, but we're going to roll with that.
Yeah, two Christian guys. We got microphones.
Yeah. Somebody paid to give us microphones, and they're going to pay the price.
That's right. They made that mistake.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, we're back on video, finally. What'd you guys do? How'd you fix the video? It looks so much better. We don't know.
The problem just fixed itself.
Yeah,
my parents said that wouldn't be a solution to problems. This is proving them wrong.
Yeah, no, we absolutely did not change a thing. I was going to use, actually, my mother-in-law's nice camera, but I realized I didn't have the cables because I'm awful at preparing and being ready for all of the things I need. So I'm like, we'll just use Wyatt's phone. We'll deal with the shakes again. And I'm looking at it right now. I see nothing. So
it's very weird. I can't tell you what I did. I kept looking it up online. It's like, why is my camera shaking? iPhone, I think it's 14, camera shakes and stuff. And just people are basically like, no, your camera doesn't shake. What do you mean? that doesn't exist.
That doesn't happen.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
That's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. Clearly.
I'm sorry that you had to deal with that.
It was frustrating. So frustrating.
I'm sure
and I didn't even have to worry about it, really.
No. Yeah, so anyways, we're back. Well, we're going to try to use that camera. Maybe we'll add a third angle, something fun. Anyways, yeah, so we're back. Is it going to shake next week? Maybe. We don't know. But we're back on video, and that's what we're excited about. I chopped all my hair off in preparation for a new episode. Now I think I look like a dumb little egg on the camera. Now that I'm looking myself right here on this laptop, I look like a dumb little egg.
I'm sorry. Well, no, it's not just on camera. I mean, it's in person.
Okay.
If that was your worry.
Okay. No, I try not to look down at this computer screen because I don't like the way I was told to quit touching my face so much, but it's really because I'm like covering my face.
You need to just wear like a Phantom of the Opera mask when you show up.
Well, I wish I could be like somebody and just grow a massive beard.
The beard hides all. If the beard is
It really does.
It's
you guys
great.
Wyatt looks like a little baby under that thing.
I do, actually. I do.
He
New
does.
guy hired in at work. He's also got a beard, so that makes everybody except one guy who doesn't have a beard. And he's lame because he doesn't have a beard. What a small little baby. He's like a 30-year-old, but he's a baby. And I tell him that.
Hey, I got something.
Exactly, that counts.
It's better than nothing.
Exactly. It's not nothing.
I can't go clean shaven because if I do, it gets bad.
It gets real bad.
No, I mean, this angle just doesn't do much justice. If I could stare at the camera the whole time, it'd be a little bit better. It just doesn't do me justice.
All right, fine. Don't look at me. It's not like I'm
No, but then I get sad because I like to look into Wyatt's eyes. Oh, crap.
Oh, do you?
I just hit your camera angle and you just had the shakes.
Are you for real?
You're fine. All right, we're a little unhinged today. We're scared. We got really bad weather coming our way.
Oh, my gosh.
We're scared, guys.
I always love extreme weather. I do. It's so much fun because it shakes things up. It's out of the normal.
I like it. I like it in the winter because I like, the snow and it's like, I got to drive to work. It's going to be crazy. And I don't like tornadoes and stuff.
Tornadoes?
Yeah, they get a little spooky. Actually, they used to not even bother me until...
I like how the sky looks and the winds and until what?
Till I married a woman who is really scared of storms.
Uh-oh.
That's not true. You're the one who always go to the bathroom every
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh. This is a notebook situation here.
All
She's
right.
calling you out.
Okay, if you guys didn't hear that, Emma said, that's true. I was the one that made us go to the bathroom. Emma's claimed responsibility.
Emma's claimed responsibility.
I got a little worried. Look, I got a family to care for now. I got a dog and a cat and a wife.
Yes.
Your perspective changes when you become a husband. It just does.
I guess I just don't have your perspective.
You just don't yet.
I just like watching the storm.
Woo! No, I get a little worried. But then again, I looked it up. Odds of getting hit by a tornado in Columbus, Indiana are fairly low.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But again, never zero.
Never zero. That's right.
Yeah.
So, how's your week been?
My week's been pretty good. It's been a really quick one. There hasn't been too much going on, really. I mean, Monday, Tuesday really kind of flew by. We're sitting here on a Wednesday, but I think, once you get through Wednesday, there's really not much left of the week.
No, not really. I guess. I don't know. My weeks are more like, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the busy ones. And it's like Monday, Fridays are really nice. Fridays will have more stuff than a Monday. My Mondays are good. I think I've told you that before.
Yeah.
I kind of like Mondays. Mondays are chill.
No. Things get better past, like, Tuesday. Like, Monday and Tuesday are kind of rough. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're usually pretty good. Thursday, I like Thursdays.
Thursdays are good.
Usually we do the podcast on Thursdays, but we're not.
No.
Not today, because
Don't
why?
we?
Why stick to a schedule?
Exactly. Well, you got to shake things up, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's good.
No, so, not been a bad week. I can't really complain.
Yeah.
How about you, buddy?
Still trying to get a haircut. It's been like 2 weeks now.
Oh, yeah.
I just cannot get one. So I thought I had one that moved up because I'm just texting the lady who cuts my hair because she's always cut it, and I thought she had me down for like an earlier day, and then she didn't. She had me down for the original today at like 4, and then today happens, and I'm stuck out at a lake doing a grinder pump till, well, I clocked out at about 4:30. So, it was a while.
You had a long day.
Yeah. So I texted her and had to cancel. Now we're trying to figure out another date. And she's like, I got 9 a.m. on this Saturday. It's like, I work this Saturday till noon. So we'll figure it out. You don't need your haircut. I wear hats most of the time anyway. So
yeah. Well, that's kind of how I was when I ventured out and I got this a lot shorter than I usually do. Here's what I told her. I said, look, I used to have a buzz cut and I really liked it, but I've gotten a little bit fatter. Since my buzz cut, I just have, I've just gotten a bit of a chubbier face. Is what it is. Life happens. But I was like, I fear that a straight buzz cut like I had previously, would accentuate the round face a bit too much. So what she did was she cut it a little bit on top, so I can take some like gel and just kind of rough it up a little bit. And that's what I did yesterday. Actually, didn't look too bad.
Okay. I've heard that your hairstyle should contrast your face shape. Unless you have like an oval face, then those kind of are like good all-rounders. But yeah, if you have like if you have a round face, you kind of want a more boxier haircut because then that kind of breaks up the roundness. Because we've all seen like Josh from Drake and Josh, kind of round face with the round hair, and it's just like
he's really round.
He's a round guy.
Yeah, No, that's why I like my hair to kind of do the little thing because it adds a little bit of. It makes my face look a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so it's not bad. But I was thinking, I'm like, if it looks awful, I told her this. I said, look, don't worry about it. If it looks bad, I'll just put a hat on.
Yeah.
I said, I wear a hat all the time. Only time I'm not wearing a hat is if I'm, at church. At church, I don't wear a hat. That's just my own personal thing. But like,
I know that's weird. So that's something I've really never been convicted on.
It's not
much more of a. I mean, I do take it off to pray, but I feel like if you're wearing a hat outside of church, you wear a hat, to work. You wear a hat in a lot of different places. I don't know. I never got that. I don't know. Take your hat off. You're in church, kind of a thing. Because God's outside of the church as well. So if it's in reverence to God. I just don't know. I've never felt convicted on that, really.
Yeah, I don't know if it stems from like no head coverings in the temple or something like that. It's not like I have an issue with it. I was just, like people don't people don't want me to be on stage with a hat on. That's really what it is.
That's true. That kind of hides your face and stuff.
Yeah, so
I don't think I wore a hat when I did play guitar up there a couple times.
So I don't because people don't want me to have it on.
Plus, it's hot up there.
It does get warm.
You really start sweating.
I do sweat without it, dude. I sweat like crazy. I don't know if people can see it, but like,
not really. I mean, maybe there's like one or two where you're like wearing a lighter colored shirt and you can see it then, but like half the time you're wearing darker stuff anyway. So
I try to or wear sleeves, but yeah, it'll get a little rough sometimes, But yeah, I don't know. That's the only time I don't wear a hat though. So like any other time, I'll just put a hat on.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I didn't wear a hat while working today, which I usually do, because usually my hair is too long and it gets in my face and it's just annoying. So I put a hat on.
You got that hippie hair.
It is though. It's like down to here, and I take showers, in the morning, and so it makes my hair real flat, and so it just kind of it's too much. It gives me like overstimulated, too much going on. So I put the hat on. But I didn't wear one today, and dude, it was so cool. Like,
nice.
I didn't have that thick hat on,
Okay.
Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, so interesting. But yeah, otherwise my week's been really good. Just working a ton.
That's what we were talking about your week.
Yeah. Work and school and work.
Yeah.
Going over basic electricity now, so that's
Well,
boring.
I think
Plumber, water, we don't need electricity.
It's interesting. It's good for you to know.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. We do a lot. That's what the grinder call was diagnosing the electrical because the floats went bad. So now we're like probing the control box and stuff, and it's like, I hate this.
Dude, that's what I do all day.
Electrical.
That's what I spent all day doing was just electrical troubleshooting. I feel like my days have become that a lot.
I guess if you're good at it, it's not as bad.
I'm not very good at it.
Oh. You're just jabbing stuff with these.
Yeah.
I got these 2 metal needles. I just jab stuff.
No, it's like I understand the concept of a circuit. It's like water. It's like plumbing. You just can't see the water. For example,
that's what non-plumbers say because they try and relate to us cool guys.
No, I'm not.
And we are the cool guys. No. Everybody wants to be a plumber.
Shut up. All right. Listen, you got water. You got a water source, say a spigot, okay? And you're trying to get water to the other end of whatever you have going on. If you go and you turn the water on at your spigot, and then you walk to the end of the hose, and you don't have water, there's a blockage somewhere. Same thing for electricity. Why is this different?
With plumbing, okay, I just run the hose over there, and I turn it on. And it gets water to there. With electrical, now you got to complete the circuit and ground it and neutrals. And I don't even know what a neutral is. So, I mean,
neutral
it's annoying.
It just returns.
It's annoying.
It's pretty simple. It has to be the circuit has to be completed.
Well, okay? Water doesn't need to do that. So, I don't need to run a pipe to the water heater and then back to the main and then run it back to the water.
No, but you have to have a drain somewhere for the water to go.
That's the drainage system. That's two different systems.
Okay, but it's kind of similar, though. It's similar to the neutral. It's like it has to return back. You can't just have water pumping into a water heater and never stopping.
But they go to different places. That's the thing. It's not one giant circle. The plumbing is a giant line. It's just a bendy line that goes through fixtures and drains and all that.
No, you're right. No, it's not exactly the same. That's why I didn't say electricity is exactly the same as plumbing to the T, nothing different. I just said it's similar as to if you have something at the beginning that you don't have at the end, there's a blockage somewhere. Same thing with a circuit. If you have a battery and a light bulb and you have your hot wire and you have your return wire, your neutral, whatever, and your light bulb's not lighting up, there's a blockage somewhere. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do in that example, but
you're talking about a grinder pump.
Let's go to a Liberty grinder pump with 3 floats and a control box with a manual run.
3 floats?
Oh, my God.
I don't want to hear about 3 floats. I'm about to take a picture and send you what I was messing with today, dude.
What were you messing with?
It was with, we have certain machines, they run off of, like, drives. That control, speeds, different stuff like that. But there's, I think there's like 6 of them in this cabinet. So you have all the power to that. So you have all the wires to power all of that, but then on top of power, like of just your voltage, you have communication wires that then run to your motors to tell your motors what to do and how fast to go and whatever. And then that's on one side of the cabinet. Then the other side of the cabinet, you have strictly your fuses, your incoming power, your transformers, that transform, your 120 to your 24 volt, or, your 480 to your 120, whatever. So I don't want to hear about your little...
That seems way easier.
I don't want to hear about your little three floats.
That seems way easier than my 3 floats with an alarm. No, that seems way easier.
I mess with 3 floats and alarms. I do that a lot. We have these things, and they go off of floats, and they get sent, and they alarm out. Dude, I mess with that. I get happy when that's all I have, because all I have to deal with is a float, and where is that signal going? It's so much simpler.
I don't believe you. No.
It was a matter of time before we got into a trades argument.
Well, yeah.
It was a matter of time.
Because you think electrical's better than plumbing. All right, what made the Roman civilization real good? Sewers.
Okay.
Right. Water.
What would have made it a lot better? Electricity. Wouldn't it have?
What would have made it a lot better?
Wouldn't it have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would air conditioning. What's your point?
And you know what you need to have air conditioning?
But they didn't have that stuff.
Electricity.
You need plumbing too. That's why it's plumbing and HVAC companies. So.
Yeah, I understand that, but it doesn't do you much good if you have just the plumbing.
Yeah, it does. It does great. You can at least wash your hands, go to the bathroom.
Now listen.
Plumbing is the bedrock.
I am not an electrician by any means. That's not what I'm trying to say. I am this farthest thing from it.
Well, yeah.
I just mess with it.
I just mess around with it. I like to get shocked.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not claiming to be at all. There's a lot of things I don't understand about it, but I've been doing electrical troubleshooting along with other people. It's not just me. I mean, I'm working with a lot of people, and I really don't matter at all. I'm a very unimportant piece to the puzzle here.
Yeah.
But with my experience of messing with it, it sounds a lot harder than what you had to do today.
Well, I'm sorry. It's tough, okay?
So
it's just so tough. No, it was something my dad, I think he said about working on a 2 light switches that control 1 light. So it's got more wires than like that.
Like a 3-way switch.
Yeah, I don't know how them work, but he was saying about how like somehow they brought the hot to the light, and that each light switch actually just turned it on or allowed it to go. Somehow it worked like that. So Dad was like turning the switches off. It's like, all right, testing the switches. Yeah. It's like, okay, there's neither of them are hot. And then he goes up to the light and shocks himself a bunch. And he couldn't get. He was saying something like, man, I was messing with it for so long and I just kept getting zapped. I started to like it.
Yeah. he was telling me and Emma about that. He was like, I started to like it now. I just touch the 120 for fun.
Yeah. That's great.
That's funny.
Yeah, he kills me.
Yeah, fun stuff. Anyways, Wyatt.
Yes.
Before we jump into this really thrilling conversation that we have prepared today, let's take a moment to thank the people that have gotten us to where we are today.
Yeah, we should.
Yes, we probably should.
Yep.
We probably should.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, real quick before we jump into everything, we want to thank the people that have allowed us to get where we are with the video, with the audio from the very beginning. That's Hope First Wesleyan. They're more than just a financial sponsor or somebody that, gives us the things we have. Also, it's both of our home churches, our home communities, our home families. And, we want to thank them for that and for allowing us to be here and doing that. And so,
yeah. We'll get into the episode.
This is our thank you.
Yeah.
Wyatt's the most appreciative.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump into it.
All right.
Let's get into the real meat of this.
Absolutely.
Let's get to the real importance. Look, last week we went through some of chapter 9. It's a shorter one.
Yep.
We got to just about the sons of Noah. Is about where we stopped. So this week we are going to jump into the rest of chapter 9 and try to get through that and then go from there and see what we end up getting into. I don't know. I mean, just Wyatt, a quick recap of last week.
So, yeah, we went through chapter 9, just talking about the importance of humanity, seeing how, God says, whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. Really talking about bringing up the death penalty. If you kill someone, then you are going to be killed, right? And we also see the covenant between Noah and God, and we see him put the rainbow in the sky as a sign to say, I'm never going to, what is it? Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there... Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth, right? And, we also went off on a couple rabbit trails, one of them being the I don't know, we can see God's love in all of its aspects, just like you can see how rainbows are a diffraction of pure white light, and you see all of the different colors through it. So you see God's love and how he reacts to humans in each of our different states with each of our, fallen qualities. Some people are more likely to be wrathful, some people more likely to be lustful, things like that. And you see how God answers them and responds to them and deals with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know we went on a couple different, like I said, rabbit trails and stuff, but I think it ended up being actually a pretty good conversation that we had. And so, yeah, again, that just kind of takes us into today, so I know exactly kind of where we stopped. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to start reading through here, and we will go from there.
Okay.
All right. So Genesis chapter 9, verse 18 is where we will be starting, and it says, "The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the 3 sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the earth. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his 2 brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backwards and covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, 'Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers.' He also said, 'Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend the territory of Japheth. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his slave.' After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Altogether, Noah lived 950 years, and then he died." So that's the end of chapter 9. And I think that little story there of Noah and his sons, it's huge, and that honestly begins to set up the as what we'll continue to read here through Genesis. Kind of, it's almost like we see there in chapter 9 there in between verses 18 and 19. Where he's talking about his 3 sons, and he mentions, or his sons are mentioned, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, are obviously the key figures from where all these nations are going to descend. And Ham here is specifically noted as the father of Canaan. He's the only one whose son is specified here, which is obviously a clue that his lineage plays a significant role in the later biblical events that we'll see, which again, this starts to set the stage for the conflict between Israel and the Canaanites. Genesis 11:9 tells us that therefore its name is called Babel, which again we'll get into this. But, Babel. Because therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. This division of nations is a direct result of human pride and rebellion, but also serves God's purpose in spreading people across the earth. So this is kind of the beginning, the key figures of really the nations descending and the lineage, and where we start to see things separate and divide.
Yeah, how much they differentiate. Yeah, and just just talking to, at least that point on the Tower of Babel real quick, you separate people based on language. Well, now all of a sudden they're not sharing the same language. That means they're not communicating. They're not sharing the same ideas. Signals get crossed. I mean, you just can't communicate clearly. So then you're naturally going to want to disperse from them. I don't want to talk. I don't want to be around all these people because they don't understand what I say, right? They don't understand. And if I'm telling them how I want to live or how I want, even my house to be or anything, they aren't going to get that. And it's just going to cause division that way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really interesting how, and when I, first saw this, seeing that it's like, man, he really went off on Ham just for seeing him in his nakedness. So, I mean, I'd ask you, why do you think he cursed him?
Well, so you start kind of back at the beginning there where he plants this vineyard. Mm-hmm. It makes the wine and gets drunk off of it. Mm-hmm. This is the first mention of alcohol in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay, right here. And I think it serves as a cautionary tale where drunkenness obviously often leads to poor judgment and sin, like you see in Proverbs chapter 23, where it talks about the dangers of excessive drinking, mentioning in there, at least at last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper.
Yeah.
And we see here that, this righteous man, Noah, again, who we understand is righteous, is here. He obviously still is susceptible, idiot, to that moral failure. Mm-hmm. And so Noah, the man who walked with God, survived the flood, is now, exposed and vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And I want to, kind of now beginning to answer your question, I want to flash back to when we covered Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 3. When they realized that they were naked, and the first thing they did was they sewed fig leaves over them and made clothing. Mm-hmm. And so Ham sees his father's nakedness and immediately goes and tells his brothers. And now this is not like an innocent, I'm just going to go tell my brothers what I see. This was an attempt to mock his father.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. And it symbolizes the shame and exposure that we see by Adam and Eve in Genesis. And so I think that's why, that is why Noah, curses Ham, because in the contrast of that, you see Shem and Japheth and how they treated Noah with respect, and they covered him. They didn't look at him, and that reflects, a biblical principle of covering sin with love rather than exposing it to ridicule, like we see in 1 Peter chapter 4, where it says, "Above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins." And there's a couple different things in there. As far as like honoring your parents, like we see in Exodus, honoring your father and your mother.
See, and that's where I always took it whenever I tried to dive deeper into it. And that's what I always saw is not just, like peeking in there and go, oh, whoop, shouldn't have seen that, sure. And then maybe covering it up is, then immediately going and say, hey guys, look at this. He's an idiot, and that's not honoring your mother and father. That's not, that's not keeping together a family. When you start division and mockery like that, imagine if nothing would have been done about that. Then you have these, then you have all your sons kind of mocking you and jeering at you like you're just, the drunken fool. Yeah. It's like, and that's not how families stay together. That's not how people stay together, right? A house divided against itself cannot stand. So we shouldn't be out to, see someone's vulnerability and see someone's weakness, even in, like we said, Noah walked with God for so long and, built the ark, even though nobody else thought about it. Nobody else, people probably call him crazy a lot. He did all of that. And then, he's got his moment of weakness. He's human, right?
Of course.
But we shouldn't use that to then point it out, ridicule, or, take that also and get an unearned moral high horse, right? Telling them how you did wrong and you're just this bad and you need to do this and you need to fix that, right? Because that's the plank in your own eye, right? We have to understand that we're all human and that you need to, again, like Shem and Ham did, is cover it up, use Shem love. Yeah, it's Shem and Japheth. Thank you. And cover it up and just and be there for them and love them rather than, again, to point out and mock.
I think we as a church, like, and I say that speaking of like our modern body of Christ, I think we often fall into what Ham did. And instead of doing what Shem and Japheth did in, covering their father, not looking at him, not exposing him, and, getting him inside, instead of doing that, I think we as a church expose people and gossip and like, did you hear about what so-and-so did? And oh my gosh. And, you get into these trains of gossip. And I think, you see that all the time. Hardly do you ever see somebody being like, hey, stop. Like, that's not what our job is to do. Our job is not expose and ridicule them. It's to love them. And you see Paul talking about like going before the church and, confronting somebody about their sins in front of the whole church body. Yeah. And now that sounds like such a petrifying thing because now you're dealing with people that will then go to their neighbor and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, so I got this guy at my church and they go and talk to their family and they go talk to, they talk amongst themselves in the church body. And that's what you are worried about dealing with now. I think back when Paul said that, I think the goal was to then, okay, they're dealing with this. Let's surround them and love them, and deal with it with them. We'll surround them with love, like Shem and Japheth did. Even though it's so early in Scripture, you see the two contrasts, and then you see, as we continue on to verse 24, you see what came for Ham for doing that and for acting that way. This is what came to him. So as soon as Noah wakes up, he realizes what happened, and what he does is he declares a prophetic curse. And what's interesting is he doesn't do it on Ham himself. The curse is to his son Canaan, which is why at the beginning of that, Noah's sons, it's mentioned that Canaan is the son of Ham. So we know who we're talking about.
So you know who he's cursing.
Yeah. And so this is significant because the Canaanites later, as again we'll get into, become Israel's primary adversaries in the Promised Land. And Joshua chapter 9 verse 23 confirms this by saying, now therefore you are cursed, and none of you shall be freed from being slaves, woodcutters, and water carriers for the house of my God. So while Ham's son Canaan receives that curse, Shem and Japheth receive blessings in aligning his descendants with God's covenant plan for Shem. So through Shem's line will come Abraham, Israel, and ultimately Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Genesis chapter 12, 1-3 records God's promise to Abraham. I will make you a great nation, and talking about how, what comes of Abraham after that. And so that's what comes of Shem's family line. And then Japheth, on the other hand, his blessing suggests an expansion and inclusion with Shem, potentially pointing to the future inclusion of Gentiles in God's redemptive plan that we see, mentioned in Romans and different areas.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge piece, and it's skimmed over a lot. You never really hear about what happened with Noah and his sons.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of different things you can get out of it, and one of those being what it sets up. It starts to set up that division, where they're going to separate between Shem, Japheth, and Ham, and then it also starts to show us where that division between the Canaanites and the Israelites come from because of the curse on Canaan, and then the blessing that Shem receives.
This is essentially the Noah obviously isn't the new Adam, but it's a similar bottleneck effect that just as Adam's line, Cain, Abel, and Seth, that you now see Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? And you see how all of their descendants are now going to populate the earth and really start the first roots of civilizations where they set, right? Where they settle.
Yeah. And so I think you get that out of it on one hand, and then of course on the other hand, you get what we just talked about was, how to properly treat somebody who's going through something. And imagine if you showed up to church and you saw, a big figure in the church laying on the ground outside drunk. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to take him inside, love on him, nurture him, work through it with him, or are you going to, go to the church and be like, hey, I saw so-and-so drunk outside.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with that? And I think now we deal with such a culture of division like as a whole, worldly division, that it seeps into the body of Christ. And now we're people who, instead of loving on each other and nurturing, we just expose it every second we can.
Oh, yeah.
Stupid sites like Columbus, man, and stuff like that. It's like, but all they thrive on is division and just, I'm trying to expose you for the kind of person you are, or for your mistakes, because that somehow makes me look better in who I am.
Yep. It's just point and laugh.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I really don't like is we do use the scripture of going and confronting a brother in Christ, a brother or sister in Christ, and we confuse that with just going out and, like I said, exposing someone. I think there's a real difference between, Shem and Japheth covering their father when he's drunk, when he's, naked, and okay, we've covered him up, we'll wait till he wakes up, and then you can come to him later and rebuke or teach, kind of help along. So in the same way, you see that same guy drunk outside the church. It's like, well, you can't scold him while he's still drunk.
Yeah.
Just take him in, help him, sober him up, get him back to a normal state, and then talk to him and say, hey, man, you got a drinking problem? And then talk to him about it.
Yeah.
But it does no good to point it out right there when it's happening and just, because that's not going to encourage him to do any better.
Sure.
The same way you don't change anybody's mind by screaming at him.
Yeah.
Right? That these, giant arguments, or again, like the exposure, that doesn't, it might send a message like, man, maybe I shouldn't do that because it's so humiliating, but it also might double their position. It might make them double down and say, oh, well, you guys are a bunch of jerks. That's what you are. And turn it back on you. Because it really is your character showing when you decide to mock them or humiliate them. It's like, well, I'm trying to teach them a lesson. It's like, there's other ways to teach people lessons without sending such a bad example of, well, the Christian faith, of how we are told to act, because that's not how we're told to act. Right?
Yeah, no, I think that, I think you're right. I think there's ways, and I think we should confront them in love and making sure and holding each other accountable, but doing so in a way where we're standing alongside them and not just pushing them in the circle of, people and just being like, look at what they did, let's all ridicule them for that. Yeah. It's the whole cancel culture and thing. It's all along the same lines. So, so then, of course, we see Noah's death at 950 years old, which ties him to the other long-living characters of the pre-flood world. But we'll see as in time, as we continue on through Genesis, that lifespans begin to shorten now after the flood. Yep. Which kind of begins to mark a shift in human history. So while we're on that note, while we're talking about Noah and his sons, I want to just take a minute and just start looking at chapter 10. And what is that? So it ties us to what we see here as known as the Table of Nations. So what that is a genealogy that traces where different people groups came from. This means that the movement of nations is not random, and God's sovereign over all. Like we can see talked about in Acts chapter 17, where it says, and he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings. So again, just talking about how God is over all of
God's in control. Yeah. And I really like that because, I thought of it, especially when I first started reading the Bible. It's like, this is all centered around Middle Eastern agriculture and the cultures of the time. And, I initially thought, it's like I feel left out just because it's like I'm in North America. I don't see these animals they're talking about, at least a lot of them. I don't deal with the climates and just the ideas that they deal about. We don't walk around in sandals. It's way too cold most of the time of the year, So, washing your feet isn't nearly, it still is important, but it's not as important in our culture today because we're always wearing shoes, right? Aside from the modern element, but, just because of the climate, we couldn't. Yeah. So it's really interesting how the entire world is a part of this story. It's not just, the Middle Eastern section, the Israel section, or the geography is just center stage, but the entire world is on this, and it's a story for everyone. Yeah.
So I just want to start through chapter 10. I don't think we're going to get all the way through it just here in this episode. but we can just start picking through it and kind of see how far we get here. So Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 starts here and says, "This is the account of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's sons, who themselves had sons after the flood." Get ready for a lot of genealogy. We're going to try to make it interesting. We'll see. So first we're starting off with the Japhethites. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tyrus. The sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, the Kittim, and the Rodanim. From these, the maritime peoples spread out into their territories by their clans within their nations, each with its own language. Again, another pre-point. We're going to mispronounce a lot of these names. But just looking at this verse, 2 through 5 here in Japheth's line, we can see that they start to spread across Europe and parts of Asia. And so we see here where they're associated with the coastland peoples, the maritime expansion. Isaiah 42, chapter 4, actually prophesies, "And the coastlands shall wait for his law." And again, going back to what we previously talked about, his blessing of dwelling in the tents of Shem, again, could hint at the eventual inclusion of Gentiles into God's covenant family. So it just begins to tie back into that. Looking at Ham's line here in verse 6, the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Raman, and Sebteka.
Ramen. Did he make the noodles?
No. The sons of Raman, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who grew to be a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Kalneh in Shinar. Okay. You guys are going to have to go through this and read this yourself because, it just follow along so you know what I'm saying here. Yeah. Continuing through, just to get through the rest of his people here in verse 11. From the land he went to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Kala, and Rezin, which is between Nineveh and Kala, that is the great city. Mizraim was the father of the Ludites, Anamites, Leabites, Naphtalites, Pathracites, Calicites, from whom the Philistines came, and the Capharites. Canaan was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. Later, the Canaanite clans scattered, and the borders of Canaan reached from Sidon toward Gerar as far as Gaza, and then towards Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans and languages in their territories and nations.
Whew.
Whoa, a lot of ites.
Yeah.
So that's Ham's line.
Yeah. Some familiar names like the Amorites, the Hittites, the Hittites. These are still cultures that we see around Jesus' time, and we also see the famous towns, Sodom, Gomorrah. You see Sidon. We're seeing a lot of places, Nineveh, Gaza. We're seeing how, they were. It always is crazy to me just how detailed they went through all of this.
Yeah. Whew. But again, I mean, like we've talked about before, it's for a reason. It's to show that, track it back, and you can see where things,
and
make their way back to.
Especially, you can obviously tell, that they want you to go back and check all this stuff first of all. But even this, I think, points to the author that the author wouldn't go through all of this trouble if this was just some story to him, right? This had to be truth. This had to be, historical text that he's documenting. Otherwise, why would they give all of these names over and over and trying to be as detailed as possible into what regions and what clans and what families? How did they split apart, because that clearly could raise some questions when you say, well, Noah and his sons somehow populated the earth.
Yeah.
Right. But when you actually go through it and you can see just how their families,
see exactly how they do that.
Yeah, you can see how each brother basically took a side of the earth, and his whole family, right? His great grandchildren and all of their families.
Well, yeah, and going. Ham's line, his descendants form some of the earliest and most powerful civilizations, including Egypt, Canaan, and Babylon. And what's interesting, Babylon, Nimrod, love that name, strong name.
Yeah.
A descendant of Ham. So it says, right, as we just read, he becomes the first great ruler establishing Babel and Nineveh, which is interesting because both of which later became like the central
pagan towns.
Yeah, centers of rebellion against God. So again, we're going to get into this, but in Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 through 4, kind of describes Babel's pride, and we get into that where it's talking about, come, let us build ourselves a city, a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves. And what's really interesting is that Babylon's rebellion carries all the way into Revelation, where it represents worldly opposition to God. In Revelation chapter 18, declaring Babylon the great fallen is fallen and has become a dwelling place of demons. And so, this stuff, we are talking about people that are establishing the, very foundation of really the Bible and where we're going to go from here and what we're going to see this rebellion, and even like we're going to see again in Genesis. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to knock out the Semites here. We're going to go through Shem's line. We're going to briefly talk about that, and I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Quintin drew the short straw today, so he had to read all the names.
No, I've just kind of started reading. Okay, so knocking out the rest of chapter 10 here in verse 21 with the Semites. Sons were also born to Shem, whose older brother was Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber. The sons of Shem: Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram: Uz, Hul, Gether, and Meshech. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. 2 sons were born to Eber. One was named Peleg, because in his time the earth was divided. His brother was named Joktan. Joktan was the father of Almodad, Sheleph, Hazramaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Diklah, Ubal, Abimel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were sons of Joktan. The region where they lived stretched from Mesha towards Sephar in the eastern hill country. These are the sons of Shem, by their clans and languages, in their territories and nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons, according to their lines of descent within their nations. From these, the nations spread out over the earth after the flood. So, Shem is, he's the ancestor of the Semitic peoples, including the Israelites. And we can see in Luke chapter 3, kind of confirming Shem's lineage leading to Jesus. You can follow that back there. So I like here verse 32. This kind of kicks off the rest of the series as we continue through Genesis. This really boots the rest of it off, where it's talking about kind of bridging the gap to this next chapter here in Genesis 11, where we're going to start talking about the Tower of Babel, where we see, like we've already talked about, human pride leading to that division of languages and nations. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 8 states, when the Most High divided their inheritance to the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of children of Israel. Okay, so, it's just a little cross-referencing there. Through chapter 9, verse 18, all the way through 10, through chapter 9, verse 18, we kind of see that human failure persisting, that honor and respect. And then as we continue on, yes, it is just lineage. There's a lot of different pieces in here, and you begin to see people that form, like I said, the foundation of the continuation of Genesis and then just Scripture as a whole.
Again, definitely kind of throwing back to the population of the earth the first time, right before the flood, and we're seeing again civilization coming back together, and we're seeing the formations of it. Yep. And again, we'll see that in the Tower of Babel and the call to Abram.
Yeah,
so we're getting into Abram's story now.
Yes. So I mean, that's going to be next week. We're going to continue to look at kind of that sovereign plan that we talked about earlier, continuing through the Tower of Babel. I had a cool little cross reference here in Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, which just ties back into all this, where it says, "After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues." So next week we're really going to jump into that separation. Where did the different tribes, nations, and tongues start to come from? Yeah. So we've covered the people. We've covered the end of Noah. We've gotten through the flood here. We're chopping through a lot of this here. So I'm really excited for next week, where we're going to start getting into the Tower of Babel and really start talking about that and really taking a deep dive into man's rebellion again. Against God, and we're gonna see this. You guys
it's
think
a common theme.
You guys think it's crazy now. You just wait.
Just wait till Judges.
Oh my gosh,
roller coaster.
So any hooting and hollering.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed, and we're excited for next Sunday.